Dr. Davis, thanks for agreeing to join me on the Shay Moore Morning Show. Let's get right to it. What is this no zero policy and why did the district implement it?
So the no zero policy is really just adjusting the traditional 100-point scale rather than zero being the floor, making 40% the floor. The traditional 100-point scale that most of us, had when we were in school, a staggering 60% of that scale, or really 59% of that scale, is at the zero range. So 0 to 59 is an F. In looking at the grades, what does an F really mean? Does it really mean that the student has failed or really doesn't have the requisite knowledge? What we saw is that it's difficult to really understand what kids really know and are able to do. I've seen where I go into a school, a student shows up first thing in the morning, pulls out their paper and pen and just writing. I was like, go over to the student and say, hey, what's going on? I'm trying to get my homework finished. I didn't have electricity at my house last night, so I couldn't get my homework done. And so the student, instead of eating breakfast, is trying to get the homework completed. A lot of times what a grade really is indicating is that student's proximity to privilege. This is a student who didn't have electricity. We saw through the pandemic that many students, because we had to learn from home, they didn't have Wi-Fi. And then once we gave them the hotspots, they were then able to access the resources in order to complete their homework. So when we started looking at students' grades and looking at their test scores, when I say their test scores, I'm talking about their state standardized test scores. These students were scoring advanced on the state exam, meaning they are in the top 20% in the entire state. But then we look at the grades, many of them had an F. So really we were then, well, what does an F really mean? What does an A really mean? If a student starts out the school year and let's say the first two assignments, they struggled. They didn't understand the information, or there may have been a reason why they just weren't getting it. They stayed for tutoring. They asked the right questions. Oh, now I understand. That student who started out with 2 Fs could then, for the next 10 assignments, make an A. And at the end of the semester, they could still barely be passing, because when you start out in the hole, it is really difficult to climb out. And that's because our current grading system is flawed.
Some parents are feeling like this policy is lowering the bar, the expectation for their students. What do you say to a parent who feels that way this morning?
We are not lowering the bar at all. The expectations remain the same. Excellence is always the goal. What we're doing is really adjusting a scale that doesn't work and just simply making 40% being the lowest grade that one can make. When we talk about a student who is striving to make the honor roll, all A's and B's, this policy doesn't even affect that student, because in order to make an A, your grades still have to average to 90% over the semester. To make a B, you still have to average to an 80%, C is 70%. Those things simply have not changed at all. We're only referring to a student who would normally fall within the F category, that making it to where F is now 20% of the scale versus 60% of the scale makes it to where if you start out in the hole, you then can still have a chance to climb out of that hole as you continue to work and as teachers continue to understand what it is that you need help or support on. Grades should not be used in a punitive way. It really should be where we're focusing on what is it that students know or are able to do as a result of being in that class. We're not lowering the expectations at all. We're simply turning grades into a way to inform the teaching and learning that goes on in that classroom.
Well, the conversation continues on this new no zero policy that has been implemented in the Kansas City Public School District. As a matter of fact, I've posted a link on our Power 105.1 social media accounts where parents can voice their opinions on this. What if you get an overwhelming response from parents that they don't like it? What will you do as a district administrator?
Well, we are continuing to take feedback on the policy, and we want it to be a grading scale that our community, particularly parents, can really feel like they understand and can support. And so it is a policy that We continue to go out and get feedback from teachers, from students, and from parents. Let's be clear, the administration did not develop the policy. This policy was developed by teachers. We had a lot of teachers as well as curriculum coordinators that worked on this new policy.
I wish they would do that with my credit report. Can we knock off the last two? I'm just saying, Dr. Davis. I'm just saying.
If I could say this, that this really is a national conversation. Google 50% F or 50% grading scale. You'll see that across the country, numerous districts have started to take a look at this. Now, we went to 40% as the lowest. Most districts who are changing their scale are making 50% the lowest score.
Well, Dr. Davis, I appreciate you for calling into the show and explaining it. Log on to the KCPS website and voice your opinion on the No Zero policy.
Thank you so much.